What's up, YouTube? Welcome to Gods Unchained Market Watch. I'm your host, Juju, and in this episode, we'll be going over all of the notable market movements in Gods Unchained. So, happy Mortal Judgment release day, everyone. It is currently 5 p.m. at the time of filming this video, and we are 1 hour away from Gods Unchained Mortal Judgment release. So that's going to be cool to see. I'm excited to try out some new decks. I'm excited to try out some war, some nature, maybe not so much aggro deception now, but it's okay. New balance patch changes. There's always room for another balance patch in the future. So yeah, we'll keep our eyes on those cards. But anyways, we're not here to discuss Mortal Judgment. If you want to see my opinion on the new cards, feel free to check out the other videos on the channel. In this video, we'll be going over all of the notable market movements. So with that being said, let's get started with our first card. First up, we have Demonic Offering for the Death cards. So this card saw a little bit of an increase in price, which is nice. How I feel about the card, wow, it jumped all the way from $39 to $50, and it's currently climbing up to $60 right now. How I feel about the card, I think this card is very good in aggro death decks in particular, whether that be Zombie, a Nubian, or maybe even Imp. But yeah, this card is pretty insane. For 3 mana, you get to destroy a target friendly creature, maybe something expendable like a Zombie or an Imp or an Nubian, and then you summon 2 random anims. Those gain the Tribe Nether, which is pretty nice. The anims are also pretty good. You can summon one with Frontline, one with Protected, one with Hidden, and I think one with just regular stats, which is not bad, honestly. This card is definitely going to see play if aggro death decks start popping up in the meta game again. Next up, we have Pyro Cannon. Okay, so this one's an interesting one. It's a 1 mana 0/3 relic. At the start of your turn, give burn +3 to the creature with the highest health, and this relic loses 1 durability. So we do see an increase in price here. It went from $12 to all the way to $21.99. It's currently hovering around that $22.10 mark. What I think about the card, well, it's 1 mana, which is nice. It gives burn 3. It's basically deal, 9 damage at minimum? No, you deal 9 points of burn throughout its lifespan, I guess. The only thing that I don't like is you can't really control the what creature you give the burn to, because it procs at the start of your turn, which means your opponent has a chance to either play a card with higher health or manipulate their creature's totals through trading or other methods to avoid the Pyro Cannon on the minion they, don't want the Pyro Cannon effect to be procced on. It's still good value for what it is. That it's going to be interesting to see how this card plays out, but I could see this being played in maybe control death decks. In aggro death, I don't know, because you have cards like Necroscepter or Skull Scepter that take up the relic slot. So this is an interesting buyout, or interesting increase in price at the very least. Next up, we have Untold Greed. This is your 1 mana destroy a target friendly creature, draw 2 cards. So this is along the veins of Demonic Offering. It's a 1 mana spell, which is really cheap and really accessible, perfect for an aggro deck. You destroy a friendly creature, but you get to replenish your resources, which could be very good, especially if that target creature is expendable, like a skeleton or a zombie. Yeah, it's only been increasing in price since April 11th. Right now, you can get it at $20.38. Next up on the list, we have Skull Scepter. 2 mana 0/1 relic. After one of your creatures die, deal 1 damage to your opponent's god. This card is very good in aggressive decks, whether that be the aggressive Nubian or aggressive Zombie. Basically, your cards deal an extra 1 point of damage, and that's very nice, especially if your deck focuses on swarming the board and has ways to refill the board every turn. Cheapest you can find this card right now is $7.88. Last but not least, I think it's last but not least, I might be wrong. We have Catacomb Curator. This is your 1 mana 1/2 Nubian. Roar, obliterate a card in your hand. Afterlife, draw a card. Cheapest you could find this card right now is $5.51. Wow, it's amazing. It spiked all the way from what? On March 30th, it was $1.57. So that's very interesting. We currently see a little bit of resistance here. When I'm talking about resistance, I'm looking at these for sale options. You have 17 copies at 566, and then after 566, you have what is this? 22 copies at 605. So we do see a little bit of a wall here. It'll be interesting to see if support breaks out of this. What I think about the card, I think it's a very good option for revival effects. You definitely don't want to play this from your hand, but you kind of have to if you want to get it into the void. But it's definitely decent for all the cards that revive a 1-mana creature. It's a very decent target because it's netting you more resources to pull from your deck. I lied. Okay, so Priestess of Takat made the list as well. It's a 1-mana 2/2 Anubian. Whenever another Anubian dies, deal 2 damage to your opponent's god. This, in conjunction with Soul Scepter and the Necromancer card, is a lot of damage in the 1-mana Anubian decks, and this card will definitely... It's a mainstay in the deck for sure. You play this card on turn 1, get it into your grave, and then from there revive it and basically kill all your Anubians so that you can deal more damage. It's pretty nice effect, honestly. Next up on the list, we have Burrowing Scarab. This is your 2-mana 1/1 Anubian Afterlife. Both players draw 2 cards. So this card is a mainstay in Board Wipe Death, and for good reason. It's a card that lets you draw cards. It's also... its drawback is that it lets your opponent draw cards as well. But in a deck like Board Wipe Death, sometimes that's a good thing because you can make your opponent overdraw, depending on the matchup. It's an Anubian, so there's some support there. We see this card peak at the 284 mark. Cheapest you can find this card right now is 250. Cool. Next up for our Deception cards. So Deception got a pretty big nerf, at least for its aggro decks. Only time will tell if it'll affect the current aggro decks that we have, or it's just affecting the new casino Deception decks that have been coming up. But anyways, first up we have Elixir of the Snake. This card is an AoE removal option / board buff option for control Deception decks like Sleep Deception. Honestly, Sleep Deception is probably the best control deck in the format right now. The only other contender being Board Wipe Death. But it's not bad. I feel like every class has access to some sort of control variant. It's just Deception and Death have the best ones. Anyways, we see it peak at around $18.27. The cheapest you can find it right now is for $17.41. Next up, we have Sleep Dart. This is a 2-mana spell. Target a creature. It goes to sleep. It gains burn +3. This card is pretty good. It's seen an increase in price recently. Went from $6 all the way to $8. The cheapest you can find this right now is $6.62. Elixir of the Panther experienced a little bit of a spike today. It's a 5-mana spell. Pick one, add a copy of each enemy creature to your hand, or each enemy creature goes to sleep. This is great in Sleep Deception because it's a mass sleep spell. And you can also use its effect to kind of refill your hand, which is also kind of nice. In terms of price action, yeah, it jumped all the way to $7.78 this morning, but right now you can currently find it at $5.25 for the cheapest price. Cool. Moving on to our next card, we have Spellbound. This is your 1-mana spell. Target 2 creatures, they go to sleep. This has also seen an increase in price. Peaked all the way to $3.69. Nice. Now you can find it at $3.06. What I think about the card, I think this card is decent in, well, actually it's not bad in, Sleep Deception decks. 1 mana to cause 2 creatures to go to sleep is pretty decent stall in my opinion. Cool. This next section is going to be dedicated to our light creatures. So for light, there's only one creature, and it was Lore and Order Inspector. It's a 1 mana 2/2 with Roar. Set an enemy creature to its base strength and health. This is an interesting buy for sure. It spiked from $1.74 all the way to $2.91. Currently, you can find this price at $2.60. I honestly don't see anything special with this card, but chat, maybe you can help me out. Why did this card spike? Because I don't really see it. Yeah, it could possibly be a good tech card against, decks that would like to buff creatures. Maybe it's a counter to, I don't know, it's a counter to something, right? So could be something, could also not be something, but in terms of what I think about this card, it's a 1-mana 2/2 with the potential of resetting or being an answer to one of your opponent's creatures, so it might have some utility. Other than that, it doesn't really impress me like that. It's not like Alistrina or anything like that. Now, moving on to the Magic cards. First up, we have Magis, the Spectral Philosopher. This is a 5-mana 2/2 with Ward. Roar, add a Form of Wisdom, Form of Power, and Form of Unity to your hand. So 5-mana 2/2, you basically get 3 form of spells, which can be very potent. 5-mana 2/2 is obviously understated, but you get to net 3 cards, which is pretty average in terms of 5-mana cards, right? So we do see a little bit of a buyout / price increase. I don't know what happened here, but it jumped all the way from $9.87 to $15.59. The cheapest you can find this card out right now is $15.38. Next up for our Magic cards, we have Dimension Looper. This is our 4-mana 3/4 Mystic. Roar, deal 1 damage. If you're holding an Aether, deal 3 damage instead. Definitely a card for Aether support. It's also a Mystic, so it has some synergy with Frumentary Researcher. It can provide some pretty good tempo, in my opinion, because it's a 4-mana 3/4 that can potentially deal 3 damage, so that's something to think about. Jumped all the way from $143 to $383. The cheapest you can find this card right now is $286. That's it for our Magic cards. We're going to move on to our Nature cards now. So for Nature, we haven't really seen any crazy action, but there was a buyout for Trial of the Hydra. 31 copies were bought at an average price of $17.94. Trial of the Hydra is a 5-mana spell. Give regen +1 to each of your wild creatures. Then give all your creatures XX, where X is a regen amount. This can see play in any decks that run regen wild creatures. So Marshwalker, Injured Sprout, Black Jaguar. There are a ton more regen creatures involved. And it has some potential to serve as a finisher. The only problem is there are so many other finishers in Nature that are available to the class now. You have Wildfire, of course. You have Firewine. You also have the new 5-mana spell. I think it's called United Reinforcements from the new set. And then you can even use like Sudden Bloom as a finisher too. So I'm not too sure if this would be my first choice as a finisher. For, regen Nature decks, it can definitely be a crazy buff. But if you have a board full of regen creatures by turn 5, you're most likely winning the game at that point, right? So yeah, it's definitely a decent option though, don't get me wrong. I considered running this in regen Nature in the Nature deck that I played this past weekend in PTR. I just felt like it was a little too conditional and there are better finisher options available for the class at that point. So Trial of the Hydra, the cheapest you can find this card right now is $19.16, which is saying something because last time it was bought, it was like at $17.94. So interesting stuff. Next up, we have Primal Guidance. This is your 1-mana spell. Deal 2 damage to a random enemy creature. If you control an Amazon, deal 3 damage instead. It's been on a steady incline. Incline? Yeah, that's right. 41 copies were bought at an average price of $1.46 on April 10th. And it's currently at the $276 price range. The cheapest you can currently buy this right now is $2.78. I like the card. It's very efficient removal for 1 mana, especially if you have an Amazon. So that's all I have to say. It's also very cheap, so it fits well within the Amazon strategy. Nice. Moving on to war cards now. So there also wasn't anything crazy to report about war. One thing to report about, though, was Master Tactician. This card got bought out. Check this out. 195 copies at an average price of $31 or $30.91. That's insane, especially when you consider this card used to be, what, an $80, $100 card? Something like that. So, yeah, that's wild. What I think about the card, well, it's a 2/2 Viking with protected, and it gives your other, creatures flank, which is nice. Can serve as a trump card against, decks that rely on having a lot of taunts as a defense. 2/2 mana 2/2 with protected is not bad either. With the protected tag, it gets to survive at least one source of damage, which is good. And then 2/2 is understated as a Viking, but something needs to give, right? Because the effect is pretty good. It also gets a Viking tag, so it gets buffed from other Viking cards, so that's pretty nice. The cheapest you can currently find this card right now is $29.40. Next up, we have Xanth of Tartessos. This is your 3 mana 3/3 Olympian. At the end of your turn, give a random creature in your hand X strength, where X is equal to the number of creatures in your hand. This card is pretty good, in my opinion. It also works well in Olympian strategies because it's an Olympian. The cheapest you can find this card right now is $6.91, spiked all the way to $24, and now the current price you can find it at is $21.43. Sick. So before I finish off this section, I'm going to go ahead and check my audio, per tradition of these market watches, just to make sure the audio is great. Cool. So moving on to the next cards in the list. These are the neutral minions. So first up, I wanted to highlight Tutankhamun, King Tut. This is your 4 mana 1/5 Anubian. At the end of each turn, summon a 1/1 skeleton with Solus for every friendly creature put into your void that turn. This card could be an interesting play for Anubian Death because of the sheer amount of times you're ramming a Vile Reaper into something. Maybe you use this card as a follow-up on a big turn where you trade things, so you can activate the Priestess of Takat and the Skull Scepter effects. It's been seeing an increased amount of activity, although it's never seen more than 3 copies bought per day. But it's definitely something to take a look at because it is a Genesis set legendary, which means it's pretty scarce. Tomato. And the current price you can find this at is $58.48. The average price that it was bought out at was $51.25. If you call that a buyout, that's only 2 copies. Next up, we have La Bola Fuego. I love saying that name. This is your 5 mana 3/5 Aether. Roar, put all spells in your opponent's hand onto the top of their deck. For each spell removed, give them a Rune of Sight. This card is probably one of my favorite tech cards out of the Genesis set. 1, I love saying its name. 2, it's pretty nice design. It disrupts your opponent's strategy by putting all of their key cards back to the top of their deck. In order for them to get those key cards back, they either have to wait for them to redraw or they have to play the Rune of Sight. However, this only works good against some decks, especially against Magic class is going to be one of them. Deception is also kind of one of those classes, but yeah, against more creature-heavy strategies, this card is kind of useless. And this being a 5 mana 3/5, it's very understated. But it can be supported by Aether support, so that's something to take note of. The cheapest you could find this card right now is $59.97, and it's been steadily increasing in price for the most part. Awesome. And that's pretty much it, y'all. Closing thoughts. I honestly don't have any. I'm just excited for the new set. I think it's going to be really fun. It's always exciting when new cards get injected into the metagame, and I'm excited to play with those cards. Archetypes that I'm looking forward to be playing. Looking forward to be playing some War, whether that be some Dragon Tooth War or maybe some Relic War. I'm looking forward to playing some Nature. Nature is going to be top tier, definitely. Despite the Dahlia nerf, I think Nature is still going to be top tier. What else am I looking forward to be playing? I mean, Anubian Death, sure. I think that's going to be fun to try. I am kind of skeptical about the power level of that card, or of that deck type. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be strong, but I think there are better archetypes that might have better answers against that. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, feel free to leave a comment below on what cards you're looking forward to in Mortal Judgment. Also, if you like the video, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and also click that thumbs up button. It helps the channel out immensely. Other than that, let's have a good time, y'all. Excited for the release. Thank y'all for watching. Have a great day, and cheers. Take care. Peace.